Welcome back. The U.S. Justice Department is filing a formal complaint accusing U.S. District Judge James Boasberg of misconduct and demanding he be removed from a high-profile deportation case and face reprimand. The complaint centers on comments that Boasberg reportedly made to fellow judges at a March 11th meeting of the Judicial Conference. The Federalist, a conservative outlet, earlier this month reported that Boasberg said he was concerned, quote, the Trump administration would disregard rulings of federal courts, leading to a constitutional crisis. The complaint alleges that Boasberg, an appointee of former President Obama, violated ethical obligations to promote public confidence in the integrity of the judiciary and refrain from public comments about matters pending in any court.
All right, joining us now, our chief legal analyst, Khalif Rhodes. Boasberg also said that Trump's comments have undermined the integrity and impartiality of the judiciary, right? Is taking a judge to task for saying that they're worried about it not the same thing as undermining the integrity of the judiciary by saying, judges, you can't say something that you're genuinely worried about and may have had grounds to do so?
Well, a few things, and Jason hit on it in the beginning. Attorneys are a self-governing body, so I'll start there. Judges are attorneys, and so they would fall under that same category. And then you'd have like the judicial codes of conduct. So for attorneys, we have the rules of ethics. They're promulgated by the ABA, the American Bar Association, and each state adopts and creates their own rules of ethics. Judicial codes of conduct are the same thing. These canons are what judges use to guide them to ensure that they are impartial, that they're fair, that there's not even the inch of impropriety that's within their thought-making process. And so that's why you will see judges make no comment and stay away from political issues, that will stay away from specifically cases that they are addressing or are ruling on. And so typically a judge's public comment would be something that you could say would be grounds for them to be able to have to recuse themselves, to step aside, because you don't want to have even the hint of impropriety.
Right.
The concern that I have with this is that these aren't public statements. So these are made at a conference of judges. And so that's typically a place where the canons aren't set aside, but where you'd have an opportunity to speak freely. And the judge wasn't speaking freely from the reports. He wasn't speaking about the case. He was speaking about their administration's ability to move forward in following judges' orders. And so now, was he talking about his orders? Was he talking about all judges' orders? Those are the types of things that will have to be fleshed out during this complaint, because it will now have to be addressed. Anytime there's a complaint made, there has to be a hearing regardless of the type of person, judge, attorney, or anyone. If someone makes a complaint about you, now there will be an official hearing.
So, Khalif, the DOJ wants him removed from the case, possibly even impeached. Well, I mean, is this rare to have this level of scrutiny against a federal judge?
Not rare for the comments portion. If a judge makes a comment, if a prosecutor makes a comment, complaints are levied against judges, prosecutors, and criminal defense attorneys on a regular basis, and it doesn't have to be another attorney. The member of the public can lodge a complaint, and I said at the last statement, not a hearing, but an investigation will take place. During that investigation, evidence will be presented. An attorney or a judge or someone will typically hire someone to defend them in that situation, even if they know they've done nothing wrong. That attorney will point to the code. They'll point to the canons. They'll say, hey, this is what the judge's statements were. This is what the statute says or the rules say about it, and it's either in compliance or it isn't. The panel will come back and either make a recommendation. It will be either some type of censure, some type of reprimand, some type of removal, but I can say it clearly would not make it to them not being able to hold their seat. That's the farthest one, and I don't see that as happening. If anything, if there's any type of reprimand, it would be some type of censure, which would be public, and I think that would even be a stretch.
Khalif, to kind of further on what Jason's asking here, can you put this into context for us? Is this viewed as an act of intimidation where judges are going to look forward and say, maybe I don't want to weigh against the Trump administration because I may find myself, maybe not in this situation, but a similar one, or is this much to do about nothing and is not intimidation?
This is, I think, part of the Trump's plan in terms of, I've said it multiple times, you're trying to find the defenses in the judiciary. And if you're attempting to levy complaints against judges, first they were frustrated by their statements, so they go to social media and say how the judges are biased, how they're left-winged, how they're activist judges. And now they're going a step further. Not only are you activist judges, but you're not doing your job because you're not abiding by the rules of ethics and you're doing things that are outside of the scope. So this is again, an undermining, and that's what they said, is an undermining of the impartiality and integrity of the judiciary. I think both can make that complaint. If you believe that this judge has made a statement, yes, it would tend to undermine them if these statements were directing at a person or party that are before them. But I also believe that it undermines the integrity of the system if you're accusing judges of making statements that go against your client, if that's not the context of what was happening.
All right, Khalif Rhodes, we got another topic with you coming up next hour. Thanks, appreciate it.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.